Avoid these areas of Orange County, California if you have these certain requirements for your move to Orange County. So let's get started.
So here we are in beautiful Orange County, California. Now we're going to get into areas that you want to avoid. Obviously, everyone is different, so not all of these areas are going to apply to you. But if you are moving out here to Orange County, I can guarantee you that one of the reasons why you're moving out here, it might even be the main reason, is for the weather. Now, if you want the absolute most pristine weather ever, you're gonna want to avoid these areas on the eastern edge of Orange County. Like these areas, specifically Yorba Linda is the most eastern part. It can get a significantly hotter, and I mean 10 degrees, right? But like for example, we're going through a heat wave right now. That is a big difference. On the beach, it's almost always pristine. Like it is so rare to not be absolutely beautiful on the beach. Here, it's gonna be 10 degrees hotter. I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about Sean. Sean's the one that talks to the clients. So when people are asking you, what areas do I avoid if I want that perpetual 68 degrees, the perfect temperature, and we're talking Fahrenheit here.
Yes, we don't deal with Celsius here. We probably lost some subscribers, of course, but okay.
We're just kidding.
Yeah.
It's just hard to wrap your head around it if you know Fahrenheit.
So actually if we're looking at this, obviously the more eastern you go, right? So if you're going more east, of course it's going to get warmer. Unfortunately, in the grand scheme of things, Orange County is a pretty narrow narrow county. Like if you're looking at it, right? So for instance, San Diego County is way inland, like past it. Yeah. So let's hear San Diego County goes
between San Diego.
Like here?
Yeah, San Diego goes far in. Of course, not many people live that far in, but even like LA goes pretty far.
Yeah, like
east.
Pasadena's pretty popular, right? So like and that's pretty far inland. So
farther inland than Orange County.
Yeah, so Orange County, what's nice is that we are actually, as a whole, pretty narrow. Now, we are getting very nitpicky. I know people are going to be hating on us because we're perceiving to be slighting them.
Yeah.
Or they're perceiving that we're slighting them. Mm-hmm. That's not the case at all. We're just saying if you want to gravitate to the best weather and avoid not quite the best weather. So if you want to go from an A+, or if you want to avoid the A and gravitate towards the A+, you're going more coastal, right? That's just the reality of it. So, and again, because it is funny, because like different places in the country, even on the West Coast, like in Oregon, being on the coast kind of sucks a little bit because it's freezing.
Yeah.
So here it's like, no, the coast is beautiful. Like that 68, that magical 68 degrees you want. Yeah, that's where you're like I'd say about 1 to 2 miles inland. I mean, we're talking about like pretty slight sliver that you get the breezes and it's just beautiful.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's great. Now, so as you go more inland, so you're talking about like, Yorba Linda, Anaheim Hills is right over here.
Yeah, Anaheim Hills.
Fullerton. To an extent, like parts of Lake Forest, Trabuco Canyon, Rancho Santa Margarita,
even
like Coto a little bit.
Right here. Coto is a super ritzy area, but it is a lot hotter. Like it just is. Like it's 10 degrees hotter in the summer than if you're living in Dana Point.
Yeah.
And they're a similar price, right? Which is interesting.
But again, Coto's one of our unicorn little places. So actually, I do like Coto a lot. But
I love Coto, but if we're just talking pure weather here.
Yeah, if you want to avoid the A weather and you want to get the A+ weather, then the A weather would be again like inland Orange County, right, as you abut the Cleveland National Forest. So that's kind of.
I would say this is A+ weather. This is A++.
So a little Ralphie going on here. Okay, from Christmas Story. That's fair. Actually, I would actually say that's fantastic. So before we continue, let's introduce ourselves. I'm Sean Dazad.
And I'm Courtney Dazad.
And we're licensed realtors here in the state of California. And if you're watching this channel, you might be thinking, wow, Sean, I love Orange County. I love the perfect weather, the blue skies, the Pacific Ocean. I can't wait to move here. Now, the problem is I'm not local. I may be out of state. I may be even out of the country. So I don't know what to do. And until you get that, that's when you reach out to us so we can have that conversation, finding out specifically what you're looking for, and we give you your boots on the ground. We can do virtual tours of the properties and the neighborhoods as well. So that way, when you do come out here, your time is spent super efficiently. So what you want to do is you want to give us a call or shoot us a text.
Yes, that number is a cell phone, so you can call us or text us, or you can use WhatsApp if you're outside the country.
Now let's go to a different requirement or request that Sean often gets. He often gets a lot of people calling him and they say, hey, I'm working in Los Angeles, so working, I don't know, Long Beach. I personally don't know Los Angeles at all, but...
LAX is another one.
Yeah, so they're working in Los Angeles somewhere and they're like, where should I live? And then a lot of times they're really interested in South County. So South County is Irvine and then everything kind of south, right, of that, right? Not really considering the beach cities. That's not technically South County with the lingo that we use, but it's very far south. Now, I would say obviously everyone's different, but if it were me and I were working here, I would be avoiding South County just because of the traffic. I don't know what you would want to say. I mean, to me, this is too far of a commute for me personally. Everyone's different, but this is going to be, I don't even know how long, 2 hours? Like, it is bad.
Yeah, you're not wrong. It's really hard to argue that like when I've had people reach out, they say like, they want to live in, let's say, Irvine, right? But they work in like the Claremont area or like way out there, like
yeah, so it's like over here. Yeah.
So it's like I always inevitably say like, what are you looking for in Irvine? Like why Irvine specifically? And you usually have an idea of why, because obviously Irvine has a fantastic reputation, but at the same time, it's like you can find other cities that satisfy that, where you don't have to be in Irvine, but you could be pretty close to the LA County border to make your commute that much better. I know we brought up Yorba Linda as a place to avoid. Yorba Linda is like kind of like one of those where I would say, hey, that's a nice option. Fullerton could be a really good option.
Yeah.
And even like obviously, and if you want to beach cities,
or this whole area right here.
Honestly, the whole border.
Yeah, the whole border.
Yeah, like Seal Beach, Huntington Beach.
Yeah.
Great possibilities. There's just there like so you want to gravitate towards again those border cities only because again, let's be real, there's a lot of traffic in Southern California, so if you can avoid some of that. And again, also of course when we're talking about this stuff too, it's like okay, well how often are you going to LA? If you're going to LA daily, really avoid Irvine's probably as far south as I would go, but even then that's a pretty tall order.
Yeah.
And you definitely most likely don't want to go further south than Irvine because that's a long commute.
It is. And since we are talking about Irvine, if you are someone who hates HOAs, I would definitely avoid Irvine. And you know, Orange County has this reputation of being very sterile, right? There's a lot of master plan communities. Everything is a different shade of beige. If you hate that, I really don't know if you're going to like really much of South County at all. I mean, there are areas in South County that are not cookie cutter, that are more, you know, charming, like Fullerton or, you know, or like Costa Mesa or other areas like that. But, you know, if you hate the master plan communities, I don't know if you're going to like South County or Irvine.
Yes. Yeah, master plan communities, HOAs, like that whole thing. I would say that the caveat is probably like the beach cities, so St. Clement and Dana Point.
Beach cities are totally
different. You don't
different.
have as much of that necessarily.
Yeah.
But as you go inland just off of that, then you're kind of in HOA central. Not to say you can't find anything. So if you want to be in South County and avoid HOAs, reach out to us. We can point you to certain neighborhoods that don't have it. But as a general rule of thumb, it has it. So like if you're wanting to avoid that, you're kind of probably looking more for the coastal cities and central/north Orange County cities, like realistically speaking. Even then, there could, obviously there's possibilities of HOAs, of course. So, and we're finding this nationwide. Anything that's newer construction these days across the country, seemingly is got HOAs to them.
Yeah.
And again, and the thing is that I guess it's kind of a funny situation because I actually like HOAs to an extent. Like I get why someone wouldn't, in that they don't want this extra layer of oversight. They don't want that, they don't want to go from, like, they want to do something to their house and they have to clear with their HOA and the city and everything like that, whereas they just want to go straight to the city necessarily, like, to kind of get stuff done. Or they just don't want to feel like their neighbors are hovering over them to kind of rat them out, I guess.
Yeah.
So, but I find that HOAs, what's nice about it, does keep things somewhat uniform to an extent where you're not having, like, it's not like having terrible lawns and, like, you just kind of like, it's not junky, like so you have less of that, but yes, there's that sterile factor.
Yeah, for sure. And then sort of going to a totally separate topic, obviously people hear on the news and they are concerned, I mean I would say rightfully so, about wildfires. So
but how could that be? This is all green.
Yeah, so this is brush, this green part that I'm outlining right here. This all here is brush, right? It's just grass, dead grass. I mean, I find it actually quite beautiful, but that's only because I grew up in Southern California. I run out in these places all the time. Oh yeah, so here too, this is a large area that sometimes has wildfires. So if you are very concerned about wildfires,
this little pocket.
yeah, this little pocket right here, then you might want to avoid like being close to these areas. I mean, you know, here's Costa Mesa right here, and it's obviously right next to this, you know, area of heightened fire risk, right? So I don't know if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, and so obviously there's a couple issues with that. One is obviously your own personal feeling of how you feel about like forest fires and that kind of stuff. Like obviously us growing up in Southern California, I wouldn't necessarily want to be on the front line. Like I don't like the idea of like my backyard being total wilderness. I've shown properties like that, and I don't. That feels like a little bit weird to me. Where I kind of like some buffer between me and nature, to the extent that if there's a fire going, hopefully it doesn't. You know, like hopefully my house is. I don't want any neighbor's house to get hurt, but at least I like a buffer. Like at the end of the day, and that's where I kind of again I just didn't. I don't feel comfortable being right on the edge. Some people like it. I personally don't. But again, I would certainly live out in these areas as long as I was a couple rows in. But at the same time, crazy things happen. In fact, actually, this one neighborhood right here, a few years ago, they had a crazy situation happen where a fire happened right beneath some really beautiful homes, and it just kind of, but it happened so fast that it burned up a few homes. I mean, it was just one of those freak things. I think it was like an electrical fire or something like that. So it was just one of those weird things that happened. But at the same time, you know, it's like anything can happen, right? I mean, if you're driving a car, anything can happen. So that's my, you know, so that's kind of my 2 cents on that. The second part is the insurance factor. Insurance is a bit more restrictive. It is more costly, of course, if you're in a heightened fire danger zone. So just be aware that you want to factor in the cost of, you know, higher insurance premiums.
Yeah, and please feel free to reach out to us because obviously we're not experts on which areas have increased fire danger. You can reach out to us and we can give you
some resources.
Yes, the Orange County Fire Authority's you know, fire map. So that's just another thing. Now, if you are a native Southern Californian like us, maybe you're coming from San Diego or LA, and that means you probably hate toll roads, right? So if you want to avoid toll roads, what are some of the areas that you want to avoid? Because we hate toll roads.
So we actually there's two forms of tolls, right? So there are the exclusive toll roads, and then there are the toll roads where you get the fast track lanes where it's a normal like freeway, but let's say 1 or 2 lanes is actually designated for toll. So let's say the purely toll roads are like the 241 to the 261, the 133. And then so like that stuff, and of course famously the 73 freeway is one of those like that we try to avoid as much as possible. But if you're in Aliso Viejo, it literally runs through it intersects, like it dissects your city, so it runs right through it. So it's so tempting to take the toll road. It is faster, it ain't cheap. You could take alternative routes, like you could take some of these side roads to the 5 freeway, which obviously you can't take, but it can get trafficy along here too. But you know, that's where the rub is, right? So I mean, obviously South County has a decent amount of these purely toll roads. So you know, so if you're in like, you know, if you're in the upper part of Lake Forest, like Portola Hills or something like that, you're super close to the 241 freeway. Rancho Santa Margarita also very close to the 241 freeway. Costa Mesa as well. So you have several of these like communities are right along it, and parts of Irvine, of course, are right along it as well. Super tempting, right? And then so Newport Coast is right around here, so it is tempting to go on the 73 freeway, right? So these are all areas that you get, you know, that's the temptation. Now there are the freeways that you have that you're sharing. So it's like you have fast track, so you have about two lanes that are tolls, and then lanes that are normal, but the lanes that are normal are really backed up.
Yeah.
And then the 405 freeway actually has recently done a fast track as well. So I don't like it. I mean, I guess there's an option, but the rest of the freeway kind of sucks.
I guess fast track is free if you have 3 or more people. So if you're like me and you have 2 kids that you're always driving around, like it can be used in a good way. But if you're not driving your kids around, I don't know how often anyone's going to be having 3 adults.
I just take the kids out of school and I take them with me so I can avoid the fees.
Yeah. And then since we are on these big freeways, do you want to talk about
traffic in general?
Traffic, like the worst. So if you just hate traffic, the 91 is just pure hell. And then the 55 here is pure hell. I mean, honestly, it all sucks. Like the 5 really sucks. But I would say once you get to here, when you're traveling north, like you get right into like the South Coast Metro area right here. This is when the traffic starts getting absolutely
That's
horrible.
when you get that LA traffic.
Yeah, this is when, so like the 55 right here is always horrific. The 91 is always horrific. And then obviously the El Toro Y right here is always horrific. Although I will say that with South County, they did a better job of giving you alternative routes with side streets. So it, to me personally, I mean, if you're an Orange County resident and you don't agree, like correct me if I'm wrong, but to me personally, here, right here, isn't as bad as honestly anything up here. I just feel like once you get up here, it just keeps getting worse and worse until you get to LA, and then it's just like nightmare central.
I think
like,
we actually should say specifically what times of day and what times of like that the traffic is particularly bad in which direction, right? So for instance, so we talked about the 91 freeway here. So mornings, if you're going westbound, brutal. So you're getting all the Inland Empire stuff here, this Riverside traffic, heading to LA, heading to Orange County. So that part is tough. So if you're going the opposite direction,
it's not that bad.
Smooth sailing.
Yeah.
It's just that it depends on, but like obviously in the afternoons, again, this is brutal.
Yeah,
going back to the Riverside area.
Traveling east. Yeah.
Yes, traveling east. And then so 55 freeway, again, similar idea.
It's always bad.
Yeah, I mean, again, general rule of thumb that this is fair. Avoiding the 91 and the 55 if you can, I would highly recommend it. And good news is all these little gray lines, these are actually really big roads. These are not country roads that are like 2-lane roads or anything like that. These are 4, 6, 8, 10-lane roads. Like these are like almost freeways or highways in and of themselves. So you have a lot of alternate routes as opposed to LA where you're going, you are stuck. I've never seen traffic like LA personally, and it's brutal.
Haven't.
Like at least Orange County, you have
not in the
options.
United States. I have in other countries, but in the United States, I feel like LA is the worst.
Fair enough.
In the United States.
So this other one's going to be tricky because you have to actually be in the know, right? So we're talking about like avoiding Mello-Roos. So what Mello-Roos is, it's a layer of property tax that is there to fund new infrastructure, new roads, new schools, new fire stations, that kind of stuff. And so basically of these new areas, they need this additional money. So basically what they're doing is raising the property tax rate in these particular pockets where this newer construction is. And what we call newer is really anything that's built, I would say the year 2000 and newer, has some likelihood of having Mello-Roos. And now the idea is that it does drop off over time. So your general property tax rate in Orange County, depending on the city, is again around 1.1% of the assessed value of the home. Mello-Roos, depending on where you are, could be just a few $100s a year extra. It could be almost a doubling. Whereas, like for instance, Rancho Mission Viejo, one place to avoid. In fact, I was actually talking to a client recently, and we have nixed this from our list because of the Mello-Roos aspect. Because as you get lower, let me get kind of zero in on Rancho Mission Viejo here. So basically here, their Mello-Roos rate, their property tax rate is closer to 1.9%, so a near doubling, and that doesn't drop off for potentially, again, depending on the development, it could be like 40 years that it's on there. So for the foreseeable future, you're going to have a much higher property tax rate in Rancho Mission Viejo because it is so new, so much new stuff has to be done there. But as far as things to avoid, so Rancho Mission Viejo, so yeah, wherever you have...
Avoid if you don't want the Mello-Roos. Obviously, some people love Rancho Mission Viejo.
I really like Rancho again. The way I look at these things too is that hey, you have to take into account the totality of the cost, right? So Rancho Mission Viejo for like purchase price for new construction in Orange County is actually fairly reasonable. So it's not a bad price. It's just that you have to take in the totality of the HOA dues that are there, as well as the Mello-Roos fees. And again, that's when you reach out to us, we can have that conversation to give you the full cost. It's like, for instance, when people invest in Texas all the time, right? And their property tax rates can be 2%, they could be up to 4%. And you don't say, I will never buy in Texas because let's say there's a development that's 4%. It's like, well, what's the rest of the property looking like? How reasonably priced is that property and all the other factors? So you just take into taxes, property taxes as one component and you take into totality of the cost and whether or not it makes sense for you. But going back to, so Rancho Mission Viejo, parts of Ladera Ranch can have it, although it's getting close to falling off itself. Some stuff up here can, as well as Great Park in Irvine can, so this whole development around here. So you have some pockets where there's been newer developments that may or may not all new developments necessarily have Melrose either. So again, if you want newer homes, we don't have a ton of being real about it. But if you want newer homes that don't have Melrose, that does actually exist here. It's just that you have to know where to look.
Yeah, and then for some people, like we're pointing out these areas that have Melrose, they don't care, right? Like they want the new construction. Some people, that's just what they want. Some people are like that, right? Like they just always want a new construction home. I get that, right? Like the Great Park in Irvine, super popular.
Tustin also.
Yeah, Tustin has some
actually,
new
not
construction.
That part.
Yeah, so those are the major new construction areas, not really Ladera Ranch. Ladera Ranch doesn't really have
No, but it's newer in that
newer,
it's built like,
yeah.
And again, a lot of South Orange County has stuff that's post 2000. So again, South County being like around here, right? Like this is South County.
Yeah.
So a lot of this stuff is got potential possibilities of having Melrose just because it is newer. Now again, if it's closer to the year 2000, it's almost done with it, and also it's probably not a significant portion. If it's brand new stuff like what we're seeing in Rancho Mission Viejo, then it could be much higher for much longer.
And then on the flip side of that, if you don't like the older homes, and when we were talking about older in Orange County, it tends to be like 1950s, 60s, 70s. Like to us, that's quote old, that's our perspective. But if you don't like that sort of, I don't know, it kind of reminds me of like an LA suburb, right? If you don't like that look, then definitely kind of like North County, parts of Central County, like those neighborhoods can often just kind of feel like these older suburbs, right? If you want to avoid that look.
Well, and also you could say that even I would reckon to say that coastal Orange County has a bit of hit and miss when it comes to older.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, again, also you have a lot of stuff that's been rebuilt and brand new, and obviously has to offer some variety. But yes, as you get more northbound, then you're dealing with stuff that's definitely on the older side. Yeah,
right?
I mean, it's just more established.
Yeah, it was built earlier. So, that sometimes people just don't like that look. They want the master planned look. Like they go to Irvine and then they're like, this is the most beautiful city I've ever seen. I want that, right? It's all to each his own.
Yeah, and I've had plenty of people that really want that charm and that older kind of look, and you're going because they just don't want that cookie cutter different shade of beige. Mm-hmm. Again, the newer stuff actually kind of avoids. They've done a better job with it, but there is that segment of stuff that was built in the 1980s, 1990s, like where it's a different shade of beige. It's just how they did like stucco and everything, all that stuff. But yeah, over here you again, not to say you won't find some newer homes in any of this, but as a general whole, you'll have some older like homes that you may or may not want to gravitate towards. But in this case, it's avoiding if you want like older, quote unquote, for Orange County standards.
If you don't want older. Yeah. Avoid if you don't want older. And now this one is a little bit tongue-in-cheek because Orange County is expensive. I mean, let's be real. It's one of the most expensive areas in the United States. But if you're on like a super tight budget, you're probably going to want to avoid.
I mean, super tight budget.
If you have any budget.
If you have a budget that you don't want to blow out of the water.
If you're looking to spend $4 million or less.
Oh gosh, just don't even look the other way from these places.
Do not go to Newport Beach. So you want to circle.
Yeah.
Circle Newport and Laguna. Those are by far the most expensive cities in Orange County. I mean, I'm not joking when I say $4 million is not going to get you much.
It's pretty crazy, actually, like how expensive these areas are. I mean, their median price point at the time of this recording is around $3.5 to $4 million median, not even single family, right? So it's just this swath here is crazy expensive. In general, beach cities are going to be expensive anyway. I mean, you're talking about. But you have to frame it in the way that these, like Laguna Beach and Newport Beach, have reputations that are like international, like internationally known areas, right? These are the places that would compete with the Monacos, with the Tokyos, with Paris, like that kind of London.
Yeah. This
is what they're up against, right? So it's like, and actually, in fact, there are parts of LA that actually these places are almost like cheap in comparison towards, like which is I'm talking to like Malibu and stuff like that, and I'm like. I would any day live in Newport over Malibu personally. I think Malibu's way out of the way. I honestly don't understand the draw of Malibu because it's like forest fires, mudslides, floods, way the heck out of the way. I don't really know. And people will buy a $200 million mansion there, right? Like so, it's kind of unbelievable. But so I guess what we've actually done stuff like videos on these things before, but these are actually relative bargains for the weight class that they're fighting in, right? These are just really incredible cities. But there are options, and so so if you want to avoid like just like breaking the bank completely, there are other options, and I would avoid these areas.
And then since we did mention Laguna here, if you're looking for convenience, I would avoid Laguna. Laguna, I love. It is such a beautiful city, but that 133, do you want to just like highlight the 133? It gets so backed up, and you know, even if you have a $50 million home, it's gonna be hard to get to that home if you're driving back and forth every day. That's just how Laguna is.
133, like this is how you're getting there.
Yeah.
These side streets that we talk about, they don't apply to Laguna Beach because it's just canyon and it's wilderness and stuff.
Yeah.
And again, it's designed that way. People want that seclusion, right? I mean, Laguna Beach was one of those places where Hollywood executives from LA, like area, would have their second home here. This is where they wanted to get away. It's kind of like, I guess, like the Hamptons in a way, like that.
Yeah.
But so they have no desire to necessarily make it easier. And in fact, even despite how much of a pain it is to get here, in the summer, it is so crazy busy like here that it's like there are so many tourists that go through that area. It's a beautiful area. I mean, you have really cute boutique shops, really cute little stores, beautiful beaches, beautiful restaurant, great, fantastic restaurants. You have so many things, but again, that traffic there is tough. And so to get here, huge pain. And this traffic backs up like over here. Yeah. Whew, that traffic is not fun.
Yeah, and even if you're just looking at to the south, Dana Point and San Clemente, and you'd think, oh, they're farther south, they're harder to get to. They're actually not. They're easier because the 5 freeway right there.
Yeah, the 5 freeway is like right there.
The 5 freeway, it just makes it so much easier to get to those cities, even though they're less centrally located.
Yeah, because, exactly.
And then sort of a separate topic, Orange County does have an international airport, and if you are concerned with airport...
Oh, I mean, international, really?
Well, I mean, it's Canada and Mexico. But if you are concerned with airport noise, you don't like the airport noise, you definitely probably want to avoid, like, East Side Costa Mesa, and then there are parts of Newport Beach that...
along the Back Bay, honestly. Like right around here.
Exactly.
It's just like, again, you will have heightened airport noise. Yeah. It's not nearly as bad as, let's say, LAX or anything like that. They do a good job where it's kind of weird. Like the way Orange County Airport is that they take off very vertical, like for an airplane. So to kind of not have as much noise impact. But at the same time, it is there. I've lived in Eastside Costa Mesa. I have not. It's one of those things where if you stop and really listen for it, yes, you'll hear it. But then over time, you don't even notice it anymore. I mean, it just kind of goes away.
Yeah, that's for us personally. But some people are, super sensitive to it. So if you want to avoid it, I would definitely avoid those areas.
And in fact, actually, we've done videos in the Back Bay, like right around here, and we've actually had to pause because we were, like the airplane was taking off overhead. So it is one of those things where if you want to avoid airplane noise, you probably want to do that.
And then now, sometimes people, like, they don't want to live in a gated community. They feel like it kind of strips you of a community vibe. So though obviously any city will have gated communities, right? But if you want to talk about maybe like the biggest areas of gated communities, where would you want to avoid?
So if you want to avoid it, so Coto de Caza is technically not a city, but a census district. And the whole thing is basically 5,100 housing units within the gates, right? Yeah. So like this is a gated community in and of itself. This is actually one of the reasons why I find Coto de Caza to be one of those really good values, is because sometimes people are reaching out to me, they want a larger house on a larger lot in a gated community for a certain price point. And Coto de Caza, not that they don't have really expensive homes, but as a general whole, the value is really, really good for that reason. But if you want to avoid gated communities, Coto de Caza is definitely one to avoid. Yeah. And we're talking about like bigger communities, right? Because we obviously don't want to get into all the...
Yeah, any city has gated communities, of course.
Yeah, and then Newport Coast area, again, is another one of those where the majority of communities in Newport Coast are behind gates, not behind one gate. So what's nice about Coto, for instance, you get in and you're in the whole general gated community. Now there are some little pocket developments that actually have a second layer of a gate, but in general. But as far as Newport Coast, like this is like you have different like developments that are actually within their own gate confines. So those are two areas in particular that would bring up, not that there aren't others, these are just more the larger ones.
Yeah, and we're perfectly aware that some people are like, that's exactly what I want. Like you said, there was a gated community inside Koto, a gate within a gate, like that's what I want. So obviously we're just, everyone's different, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like Irvine has several communities as well that are gated. It's just that these are the two, I'd say, most prominent ones.
Yeah. And then if you want to avoid, big tourist attractions, obviously anything around Disneyland, you're going to have a lot of tourists.
On the beaches, I guess we could talk about too.
Yeah, some certain parts of the beaches will have a lot of tourists. I mean, I would say the less touristy spots for the beaches to me is San Clemente and Dana Point. Those are more local to me, and also Seal Beach. Like, it tends to be more like the locals hang out there. But the big touristy areas are obviously parts of Newport. Laguna has tons of tourists. Huntington has tons of tourists. And then obviously Anaheim, people from all over the world go to Anaheim because they want to go to Disneyland. Go to LAX, you land in a plane at LAX, and somebody sitting next to you, they're not from the United States, so they're like, where are you going? We're going to Anaheim.
Well, and also it's not just even Disneyland, right? You also have California Adventure, which is part of Disneyland Park, but also you have like professional sports teams in Anaheim as well, where you have the Anaheim Ducks as well as the Angels, which is a baseball team. So you have you just have a lot of stuff going on in Anaheim. Anaheim is our kind of entertainment center in Orange County.
For sure.
And remember, we are licensed realtors here in the state of California. So as much as we love making these videos, what we love more is to help you with your real estate needs. Whether you're looking to buy or sell a home, what you want to do is you want to give us a call or shoot us a text.
Yes, that number is a cell phone, so you can call us or text us, or you can use WhatsApp if you're outside the country.